Okay, so you want to own a speakeasy. You picture a heavy wooden door in a dark alley, a secret knock, jazz music spilling out from a smoky basement, flapper dresses, and a bartender pouring gin into teacups while money just keeps piling up in the register. Then you look at the actual accounting of an underground club in 1926. A barrel of smuggled whiskey costs 10 times what it did a decade ago. The police sergeant expects his envelope every Thursday. The mob lieutenant expects his cut on Friday. The jazz band demands cash nightly, and your doorman just got arrested, which means you have to pay his bail before he talks. That is the part the romantic movie version leaves out. Someone has to source the illegal liquor, dilute it without killing the customers, hide the smell from the street, pay the bribes, hire the fall guys, and cover the rent when a raid shuts you down for a week. We are going behind the secret door and into the ledger. We will open a large speakeasy in an American city around 1926, follow the dirty money in and out, and see whether the owner could actually become rich. First, the basic concept of what you are building is wrong. You think you are opening a hidden bar. You are actually opening a massive, highly vulnerable illegal logistics hub masquerading as a legitimate business. A successful speakeasy is not just a room with alcohol. It is a delicate balancing act of real estate, chemistry, supply chain management, and extortion. The location does most of the heavy lifting. You cannot simply rent a basement and start pouring drinks. You need a front, a legitimate business that explains why people are constantly walking in and out of your building. It could be a flower shop, a soda fountain, a barber shop, or a dance academy. But this front is not a fake cardboard set. It has to actually function. You have to buy real flowers, hire a real barber, and pay real taxes on the fake business to keep the federal agents away. This means you are funding a money-losing legal operation, just to protect your money-making illegal one. Walk through the front, past the trusted lookout, and the architecture of paranoia becomes obvious. You need multiple heavy doors, ideally steel-reinforced. You need an escape route for the customers, and a separate, hidden exit for the liquor. If the police raid the front door, the evidence has to vanish through the back before they break the locks. This requires custom construction. Drop shelves that dump bottles directly into the sewer, hollow walls, secret dumb waiters. You are paying carpenters double or triple their normal wage, because they know exactly what they are building, and their silence costs extra. Before the first drop of alcohol reaches a glass, you have already spent thousands of dollars on a paranoid renovation. But real estate is just the container. The product is where the real danger sits. In a legal bar, you buy a barrel of beer from a brewery, put it in the cellar, and serve it. In 1926, the supply chain is fractured, violent, and completely unpredictable. You have 3 ways to get alcohol, and all of them are terrible. Option 1 is smuggled liquor. Real Scotch or Canadian whiskey brought over the border or dropped off by ships on Rum Row. This is the good stuff, but it is incredibly expensive. By the time it reaches your basement, the price has been marked up by the smuggler, the boat captain, the truck driver, and the local mob boss who controls your territory. If you sell this pure, your profit margins are razor thin. So you do not sell it pure. You step into option 2, the art of the cut. 1 case of real smuggled whiskey is never sold as 1 case. It is watered down, mixed with grain alcohol, colored with caramel or prune juice, and bottled into 3 cases. Your bartender is no longer just mixing cocktails. He is an amateur chemist trying to make cheap, harsh alcohol taste like imported scotch. The cocktail culture of the 1920s did not explode because people suddenly loved complicated drinks. It exploded because the alcohol tasted so bad that it had to be buried under sugar, citrus, and mint just to be swallowed. But even grain alcohol is hard to get. Which brings you to option 3, industrial alcohol. The government required companies making paint thinner, antifreeze, and cosmetics to add toxic chemicals to their alcohol so people would not drink it. This was called denatured alcohol. The bootleggers bought millions of gallons of this toxic liquid, hired underground chemists to wash out the poisons, and sold it to you. This is where your financial risk becomes a lethal risk. If your supplier's chemist did a bad job, the alcohol you serve could blind or kill your customers. Dead customers do not pay their tabs, and they tend to attract police who cannot be bribed. You have to test your own supply, manage the dilution, and constantly monitor the quality. You are paying for the alcohol, paying for the cutting agents, paying for fake labels to make it look European, and paying the employees who sit in a back room bottling it. And there is a logistical nightmare nobody talks about: the empty bottles. You cannot simply throw 500 empty whiskey bottles into the trash in the alley. The police would see them. You have to hire a specific underground garbage service that smashes them in the basement and hauls the glass away in unmarked bags. Every single step costs money. The overhead is relentless. And we have not even talked about the biggest fixed cost on your ledger: the protection. A speakeasy cannot exist in secret. The idea that the police did not know where the bars were is a myth. Everyone knew. You cannot have 200 people listening to a jazz band in a basement without the local beat cop noticing. The secrecy was not to hide from the police. It was a polite fiction that allowed the police to accept your money. This is called the pad. You are on the pad. Every week, you pay the beat cops to look the other way. But the beat cop is just the bottom of the pyramid. You also pay the precinct captain. You pay the local politician who controls the city zones. You pay the federal prohibition agents so they raid your competitor instead of you. This extortion is not a flat fee. It scales with your success. If you have a busy Friday night, the captain's bagman will demand a larger envelope on Saturday. If you refuse, a police wagon parks outside your door and checks the ID of everyone walking into the flower shop. Your business dies in a weekend. Then comes the mob. The local syndicate controls the territory. They dictate who you buy your beer from, and you will buy their beer, regardless of the price or the taste. If you try to switch to a cheaper, independent supplier, a couple of men in heavy coats will walk in and smash your mirrors, your register, and the legs of your bartender. This means you have zero control over your primary cost of goods. The syndicate raises the price of beer, the police raise the price of silence, and you are trapped in the middle, forced to squeeze the margin out of the customer. So how do you actually make money? You make money through volume, speed, and psychology. A speakeasy is incredibly loud, dark, and crowded for a reason. You want people drinking fast. You hire a jazz band not just for entertainment, but because the loud, chaotic music makes people talk louder, drink faster, and stay longer. The band is an expensive overhead, but they are a revenue multiplier. The darkness hides the cheap quality of the furniture and the questionable color of the whiskey. The exclusivity, the secret knock, the feeling of breaking the law, that is the premium you are charging for. A drink that cost 5 cents before Prohibition now costs 50 cents, or $1. You are not selling a beverage, you are selling the thrill of rebellion, and the customers are willing to be overcharged for the privilege. You sell them expensive dinners, check their coats for a mandatory fee, and let them gamble in the back room where the house always wins. The speakeasy is an ecosystem designed to empty a wallet as quickly as possible before the sirens ring, because eventually, the sirens will ring. Raids are an inevitable part of the business model. Sometimes the local politician needs to look tough on crime before an election. Sometimes a federal agent arrives who is too new or too religious to bribe. When the raid happens, the financial hit is massive. The cops use axes to smash your beautiful custom-made bar. They break the expensive glassware. They pour your inventory into the street. But the real operators prepare for this. You never keep all your stock in the building. You keep just enough for the night and store the rest in a separate, rented warehouse across town. You also have a professional fall guy on the payroll. This is an employee whose only job is to be arrested. Say he owns the place, and take the jail time. You pay his legal fees, you pay his family while he is locked up, and your name stays completely off the official records. A raid does not mean the business is over. It is simply a very aggressive form of taxation. You pay the fines, hire a new carpenter to fix the doors, and open again on Tuesday. The cash flow has to resume immediately because the rent, the bribes, and the mob do not care that you were raided. The fixed costs keep burning. This is why the speakeasy is a trap for the amateur. An amateur thinks the profit is the difference between the cost of the alcohol and the price of the drink. The professional knows the alcohol is almost irrelevant. The professional knows the real business is risk management. Every night, you are balancing the greed of the syndicate, the corruption of the police, the thirst of the public, and the threat of the federal government. You have to buy loyalty from your staff. A bartender who feels underpaid will simply steal your cash or call the feds for a reward. You are running a cash-only enterprise with zero legal recourse. If someone robs your register, you cannot call the police. You have to handle it internally, which usually means paying muscle to enforce your own laws. Violence is not a dramatic plot point. Violence is simply your version of a contract dispute. When we step back and look at the ledger for a successful year, the numbers are staggering. Revenue is astronomical compared to legal businesses. You might bring in thousands of dollars a week in cash, but the outflow is equally violent. 30% goes to the mob for inventory, 20% goes to the precinct for the pad, 10% covers the legal front, the fall guys and the lawyers. Another chunk pays for the jazz band, the waiters, the bouncers, and the breakage. By the time the money reaches your pocket, you are holding perhaps 15% of the gross. It is a massive sum of money, but you have risked prison, poison, and assassination to get it. So who actually got rich? The people who got truly wealthy were not the ones running the individual speakeasies. The speakeasy owner absorbed all the localized risk. The true wealth flowed upward. It went to the syndicate bosses who controlled the supply. It went to the corrupt politicians who controlled the enforcement. And it went to the landlords who doubled the rent the moment they realized you were running an illegal bar. You took the sleepless nights, the threat of axes on your door, and the danger of bad chemistry. The system took the guaranteed profit. You thought you were opening a glamorous underground club. What you really opened was a highly efficient tax collection agency for the underworld. The jazz and the secret knocks were just the packaging. The real product was the money moving silently from the pockets of the citizens into the hands of the syndicate, with you standing right in the middle, hoping to catch a few bills before the music stopped.